thankful for her wavy stories. Hold on to the lifetime we won't get back. I know these rivers carry on. People tend to stick to you after time. Places tend to do the same as we do. This river carries on and on.
Hello and welcome to Kankakee Podcast, where we talk about the people and places of Kankakee County. I'm Jake LaMore, and today, for the second time on the podcast, we are welcomed by one of the area's many extremely talented singer-songwriters. So I'm pleased to welcome Todd Hazelrigg to the podcast. Got to have the applause, you know, you're used to having an audience, right?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And I was, I don't know a lot about you. And so that's why I'm so excited that you're here, to where I can finally learn about you.
Awesome.
And I know we've been Facebook friends, so we know little tidbits about each other from
all the important stuff, right?
From social media. But yeah, I was just anxious to learn, where does Todd Hazelrigg come from? Where did life begin for you? Was it in Kankakee County, or was it somewhere else?
No. So I'm actually not a Kankakee native. I came from Wilmington.
Okay.
And I lived there for about the first 19 years of my life.
Okay.
And my mom, she got a new job in Kankakee. So my family moved when I was 19. I moved with my parents. And then I just kind of went off and did my own thing after that. And yeah, but if people ask me where I'm from, I always say Kankakee, and I feel like that's where my music was really born, and I played in Wilmington. I was in bands growing up, but I really feel like who I am as a musician now, and like the package that I'm putting out as a musician now really was born in Kankakee. Kankakee really helped shape that sound and shape, my career as a musician.
So what bands did you... Because you're probably just a little older than I am, I think.
Maybe like a year or two. Not too much, yeah.
What kind of bands did you play in Wilmington?
So like alternative rock.
Yeah. What were some of the names? Because I'm wondering if...
there was Absolute Zero.
Okay.
In Denial. And then my favorite was the Crop Dusters.
The Crop Dusters.
It started out, we were in 4th grade, and it was just me and a drummer. And we played for the St. Rose School talent show.
There you go.
Yeah, we played Wild Thing and Smoke on the Water medley, one string.
I wouldn't expect anything less from the Crop Dusters. I feel like Smoke on the Water goes really well with that whole name. But the reason I ask it, because now the name is escaping me. When I played in a band called The Projection, there was a band from Wilmington that we played with all the time. And for obviously in like the rock alternative.
Sure, I probably would have known them because we're about the same age.
It was, I think the name Triumph was in there, or the word Triumph was in their name. Does that ring a bell? I mean, this is a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's been like 17 years,
Yeah.
I remember all the faces and all the people, because we would do like student coffee houses and things like that.
Yeah.
I played with different bands. But I can't remember what anybody was called at this point.
I hope someone's listening to this and they're able to figure it out. Because
you take call-ins?
I should, right? If we were doing this live, we'd definitely do a call-in. Actually, someone that listens to the podcast, her name is Sam.
Mm-hmm.
She might have a recollection, because I know she was in like the Kankakee rock and punk scene around the same time I was. But it was I could swear it was Triumph and something. But anyway, I'm going to figure it out when we're done with this podcast, and it's not going to even matter.
Yeah, text me because I want to know.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a good chance you would probably maybe remember them too.
It's a small town.
Yeah, exactly.
There's only so many bands around.
Especially if, there's like, there's only going to be a handful of rock bands or country bands or whatever it is. But so you moved here to Kankakee when you were out of high school?
Out of high school. Fresh out of high school.
Okay. And so what about Kankakee, like craft, is that kind of when you started to be more of a singer-songwriter than being?
Yeah, so that really came more out of necessity, because really when I started playing and when I moved here and was in bands around here, I was more of an electric guitar player. I was more known as like a lead player, like one of the gunslingers, that would come out and try to shred and,
So you did. So what bands were a part of then when you came to Kankakee and did the lead guitar work?
The first one was called Symmetric Minds.
Okay.
And we would go out. I would be about 19 or 20. And I would sneak into Brandon Casey's for the open mic to go play with JD King and JD and the Fuzz and that.
Yeah.
And we'd go out every Wednesday and we'd like promote it on MySpace like it was like our show. Like we got a show tonight. It was really just like we were
MySpace
doing a set at open mic.
Does JD still do an open mic every? It used to be. I know he did one at Sammy's for a long time too, and I forgot he used to do. Well, that was I guess Brandon Casey's was probably before.
Not that I know of.
He did that for such a long time.
Yeah, and really, I mean, that was really what got me into it. Was JD and like just their open mics are really what shaped me. As a Kankakee musician, being able to get out and play. And I remember he actually let me take over one of his open mics then for it was at was it called Plush then? Yeah, I was at Plush.
Okay, which has been 360,
right?
Whatever, and it's something else now. I was talking to someone about this I think it was at Mantino Oktoberfest. We were trying to figure out all the different names of that bar in Kankakee.
Right, there's been a lot. They should have kept the Shady Lady.
It was called the Shady Lady
before my time. Yeah, I think that was the best name.
Oh man, see. When I was introduced to it as a kid or as a teenager, it was the Whatever at that time. So that was like the mid
to we
late
used to do
2000s.
open mic there too.
Yeah. And then after that, I don't know if that's when it became Plush.
It was Plush before Whatever.
It was Plush before
Plush
Whatever?
Before Whatever.
Well, I think the Whatever name actually came and went
did it come back?
I think so.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So they must have brought Whatever back after Plush.
Yeah, so I think maybe Plush came after the first round of the Whatever.
Gotcha.
Yeah, then I think the Whatever came back, and then at some point it became 360, and then after 360 it's something else now, and I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so JD let you take over one of the open mics there one time.
And before that, Brandon Casey's was just like a really real pinnacle back in the day, because I was like 19. Like I think they knew I was underage back then, but they never stopped. They never served me, but they'd let me come in, and we bring all our friends who were like 21 because we're on that cusp, we're
after between 18 and 21,
right? Yeah. So we had enough like young people that would come in too that they loved it us coming out, so they never really said anything, and I would play there for a long time. And Symmetric Minds, that was like the first band where it's like we just like would sit around talking about like we're gonna make it, and so that was like a big one, and eventually all the members we were a 5-piece band and we let one member go and then we changed our name to Sneaky Gene.
Okay.
And
I was wondering, I was like, I knew you had an affiliation with Sneaky Gene, but I didn't know.
Right. And Sneaky Gene was like so Symmetric Minds was short-lived, it was important, in our development, but it was short-lived. The Sneaky Gene was what we did for most of it. And we rented this little studio. It was that, the Triangle Construction Building, like off of Hobby. It's like right there on like Evergreen. And
that's been a popular space for a lot of different bands to have a practice space in, right?
I think it was, do you remember the band Hotter Than June?
Yes.
We took over their practice space. All their gear was in it when we walked through to like look at it.
Yes. I remember it was Hotter Than June, and I think my brother, he was in Feature Presentation.
Yeah.
And they, I think, went there once or twice to practice too. And then so the list goes on. I know so many other bands kind of practiced there over there. And maybe they still do. I don't know.
They probably do. But we called it the Jam. That was the name. It was like a nightclub, and we practiced 7 days a week, every single night. We'd get off when we had jobs before we went fully in it,
and had probably families or maybe some people had families.
Not yet. Okay. Yeah, that all came much later, but.
And this would have been in the 2000s.
This would have been like, I think, from 2007 to like 2013 area. Okay. I was in my early 20s at the time. But we just, we were there every night. We basically lived at that place. We had parties there and people would just come watch us jam, and sometimes we'd show up and sometimes we'd practice. Sometimes we'd just hang out, but usually we'd end up with like a long, like 2-hour jam at 2 a.m. at the end of the night, But, we learned a lot. And we didn't have, all the like technical musical prowess at the time. We were all working on it, and we were, but really it was just kind of like throwing paint on the canvas and seeing what happens, and just so much good music. Probably a lot of bad music too came out of it.
Did you work on a lot of originals?
Yeah.
Or was
it was mostly originals?
Because, I was never, I remember seeing the name Sneaky Gene all over town at all the different, like, I guess bars, I would see the name on the marquee, but I'm pretty sure I never actually saw Sneaky Gene. I just saw the name everywhere.
It was such a weird, it was so weird because like we really weren't a bar band, but it was all the places to play.
That was where you could play.
Yeah. And I feel like the bars loved us and hated us because like all our fans would come out and get water. So like we'd have a packed dance floor, but like nobody was like really spending a lot of money.
Really, no one was buying.
They were, yeah. But for like the vast majority,
they weren't drinkers.
Right. They were probably doing other things out in the parking lot, but they weren't big drinkers, So yeah, so it was kind of interesting. But we really tried to do more like music festivals, and for when we started, of course, we were doing house parties and things like that. But.
So in Sneaky Gene, then, when it came to like original music, what did you guys release? What did you put out? As far as, were there any albums or EPs or?
Yeah, we had one called Live from the Jam, and it was pretty much just room mics, and doing things like that. And then we had a couple. We just had like Pro Tools and just did our own recordings and stuff. So we had a couple other like little EPs and things like that. Nothing. A lot of it I don't even have anymore. I need to get that. Yeah. Adam, our bass player, has like the whole archive on his computer. But for a lot of part, we were a live band. We did. I really wish we would have done more recording, but we did a lot of gigging and a lot of playing at the time.
So what happened then for Sneaky Gene to kind of disappear?
Well, we were playing. I think we were together about 5 years. And it's just hard, especially when you're all growing up together and we're in our early 20s. My first son was born, towards the end of it. And it just kind of started feeling like it was time to part ways for a while anyway, and I ended up moving down to Charleston, and I was down there for about 6 years. I just came back around town this year.
Yeah, I remember when we had seen each other at Heroes, Hogs, and Hot Rods, we had kind of talked about that a little bit.
Yeah. Shout out to Eric Peterson for putting that on.
Yeah. So were you kind of, would you play solo when you were in Sneaky Gene, or did that all come after Sneaky Gene went to the back burner?
Yeah. So what happened was I worked at Lowe's and I got fired.
Oh, what did you do?
I just wasn't a very good employee at the time, but I would go.
Did you work there with John Gray?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, yep.
Okay.
Same. And then Adam, our bass player, he's the cabinet manager there now. He's still working. He didn't get fired, but I remember I used to go and I was in my early 20s at this point too. Okay. You know what I mean? This was a long time ago, but yeah. I remember like going and like sneaking in the back and writing set lists, and lyrics and things like that.
Yeah.
And just in general, being a bad employee, but which I would not do today, by the way. I was younger. But anyway, so I got fired from Lowe's and I was like, oh man, like I need to pay rent, So I started doing a lot more acoustic stuff. And with the acoustic, you don't have to split money. You can play restaurants. You can get a lot more gigs. So I started booking myself up. Before I knew it, I was playing every Friday and Saturday. I did that for years, plus a couple, open mics throughout the week, and I was really just like doing it acoustic. It's really hard to support yourself as a musician in a band, So really it started becoming like the acoustic music was more like my career, with some supplemental teaching or whatever here and there. And the electric just started becoming more like the passion, And eventually it's like, as I'm sure the older you get, the more responsibilities you have, your passions start to take a back burner to necessity. But luckily for me, my necessity was gigging acoustically and making money that way. So I still got to be a gigging musician, but a lot of my electric stuff ended up taking taking the back seat, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know when recently, I guess back to Sneaky Gene for a minute, you did have a reunion show at Estival Festival, which looked like it went really well. I was really sad that I couldn't go, but it was seeing the pictures with you strapped with an electric guitar. I was like, wow, that looks weird.
A lot of people said that. It's so fun. And a lot of friends that like I have now, I didn't know back then. Were like, I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah.
It's like, that used to be the thing.
Yeah. For you, that was, that's what Sneaky Gene was. And you played electric.
It felt really good. And I think that I'm going to be really trying to make a more priority to start playing electric again.
Yeah, I mean, you could always throw that into if you ever, decide to put out some original releases of yourself, to throw in some electric guitar mixed in with your
definitely.
Acoustic,
I've got some recording software at home, and it's just been hard. Is like with the little kids. Yeah. Every time I try to play at home, like somebody comes and yanks the guitar out of my hand.
Yeah, or they pull a cord out, or
right.
Yeah, there's been times where I'm down here recording a podcast, and my son will come down if he's here, and so that's
but we're making more of a priority. It's my partner Alicia and I have been playing together more, so she's been learning and she's been playing and singing a lot more, and I've been trying to teach her some things. And we finally like made a situation where like the baby's out of the bed because it was breastfeeding, and so now like we have them on one side of the house and we can finally play again at night. It's like the first time in like 3 years we've been able to play at home, so it's been great. So expect a lot more, videos and recordings and writing and stuff that I haven't really been able to do for the last few years.
Did she just start picking up music from you, or was
she already played? She already played. She's a fantastic visual artist. But she just started, really trying to get more into her music and playing guitar. So that's what we do now when the kids go to bed. It's great.
That's so cool. So going back to, I know we're jumping around all over the place, which happens, but going back to, you're gigging as a solo artist, you're playing as much as you possibly can. And you're also, and that's probably around the time that you started teaching as well.
I started teaching in my early 20s, and it was just out of my apartment at the time, and I probably had, a handful of students. And the first actual studio teaching gig I got was while I was down in Charleston. It was a Sound Source Music in Mattoon, and I loved that job. I always held off from trying to get a job at a studio, because then you pay a studio fee. Yes. It's easier to try to just kind of hustle and do it on your own. Well, not easier, but you end up getting a little bit more money in the end.
Well, it's like anything else. There's pros and cons to it,
But as more the kids started coming, it started getting harder to do at my house, and I finally gave in and was like, all right, I'll go work at the studio, and I'm so glad I did. So it was so much easier, because they got me the students, they did the legwork for me.
See, that's the plus. That's the plus of working with under someone else.
I felt so stupid for holding off on doing it for so long. It was great.
Yeah.
And then one of the best things was they had a rock band program there. So, I was teaching like groups of teenagers, as I was basically like Jack Black from School of Rock. And like we're playing like Black Sabbath, and all these songs. It was great. Watch it. A couple of those kids, I taught, them how to play their first note on the guitar. Then a couple of years later, they're like rocking like, Black Sabbath and Metallica. And,
what was your first, by the way? Was it like Smoke on the Water?
Probably, yeah.
Because I know, I remember for myself, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Smoke on the Water was the first.
I think, what is it about
thing.
that? I mean,
Because it's really easy.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's just like a standard that I guess that's what we all learned. So, I mean, it's one of the first songs I teach, you know?
Yeah. I think it's just because it was either Smoke on the Water or it was a Blink 182 song or a Green Day song. One of those three, but it might have been Smoke on the Water.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just the
One string.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's kind of like a scale.
Mm-hmm.
It just goes down and yeah.
Yeah. My dad showed me, he was my first guitar teacher, my dad. And that's kind of all the way he started me off, you know. So I guess I kind of teach that method that I learned when I was a kid.
So you must have picked it up from your dad then. Was your mom a musician too?
Yeah, she's a drummer.
Really?
Yeah. So they're both music majors, and they met in the James Dutton band. James Dutton, he was the percussion arranger for Count Basie. And
wow, that's big.
Yeah. So he took basically like college kids, you know, and they performed like jazz fusion versions of like pop hits, you know, but he was a percussion player. So he did marimba. My mom did marimba and drums and stuff. And so like instead of vocal, it would be all instrumental, and the marimba would be doing the vocal melodies. And so they you know, toured the country for years doing that before they, you know, settled down and started teaching and had kids. And
that's so cool.
Yeah. So it's, you know, I grew up in music. My sister, you know, also teaches at King, and my dad still teaches, you know, so it's just kind of didn't really have a choice in the matter.
Yeah, I mean, your mom being a drummer at that time, I mean, there's more and more like female percussionists and drummers, I feel like, now than there were like when your mom was probably doing it. So it's just cool to hear that she had done that.
I think that's a kind of a good summation of her personality too. You know,
is it? Why is that?
Just a little fiery, breaking the mode, you know, breaking the mold. I mean, but yeah. She was she like on you about music or things like that? I thought you were gonna say about time.
Well, that's time too. Yeah.
Forward to the floor.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I wouldn't say that either one of them were really on me, you know, and they never like forced it on me either. You know, it's just something that I wanted to learn on my own. Yeah. You know, and it was always really chill. You know, there's if you want to play. If you don't, they never tried to push me into being a gigging musician. I think they'd always kind of like try to steer me away from that a little bit. Like, you know, you're going to end up in a ditch. They never said that. I'm just joking. But
but they themselves, I mean, they were technically gigging musicians in one way or another.
Right.
That you look at it. But that was probably a little more elaborate.
Right.
You know, than
it was
probably the way that you and I have gigged.
They have always supported me in doing it. You know, it's even if their, you know, original idea was maybe you should be like an eye doctor, but or something, you know, but they've always been super supportive. And you know, the one thing I always appreciated, just because they know what it's like, you know, they'd always be like, how was your job tonight? You know, it's like the dialogue they would use.
They would, you know, like,
say that Todd's got a job tonight. You know,
they would instead of asking how your show was,
how was your little music thing?
That's what my grandparents ask. How was your little music thing?
Right.
Or I guess they'll say gig. Right. You know, but gig or show is usually you know, that's something else too, and I'm sure you notice it, is, you know, when a person uses show or gig, right, that they're either a musician themselves or they work somewhere in the industry. Exactly. Versus to where someone will say concert. Yeah. And the person that uses concert, you know that they're not within like the industry of... Because everyone I know, it's always a show. Yeah. Like, I'm going to the show. I got a show tonight. Like show. But like someone that just goes to a show, a fan will just say, yeah, I'm going to a concert tonight.
How was your concert at No Dogs?
Yeah, right. That's like, what? It just, I don't know. It always sounded so weird hearing concert. Right. And I guess when I think of a concert, I think of like, you know, United Center, like, you know, 40, or well, actually, I think it's 50 or 60,000 or whatever the cap is.
I would someday like to play a concert.
Right.
I think that's always the goal, you know.
This is always to play a concert.
We can make it to concert level.
Yeah. I just always felt like concert level was when it's like thousands upon thousands of people is like a concert. Other than that, it's always just like a show.
Right.
You know, but that's just one of the, it's just the lingo, I guess you could say. But, so, you know, you're playing a ton of solo gigs, and this is, you know, early last decade. You got fired from Lowe's. You start, you know, teaching more. What is something that how do you start your students off when you're teaching guitar? What is something that you kind of do to set them up for success?
It just depends on where they're at when they start. You know, I think that teaching is so dynamic. You know, you need to find out not only like what skill level they're starting off on, but what is their learning style. You know, and you have to tailor each lesson to each student's individual learning style. You know, just even from the way that you talk to them, speak to them. It's so interesting teaching private lessons, because I might have like, you know, a 6-year-old girl come in on ukulele and then a 60-year-old man come in that always wanted to learn guitar. And the way that I'm going to approach them and speak to them is going to be very different from one half hour to the next, right? Yeah, I'm not going to, the old guy playing guitar sounding very good.
Very good, sweetie.
Right.
It sounds so good. I mean, you could.
Right. And if the little girl, I might be like, you're flat.
Oh, you suck. That sounds horrible.
That's called motivation.
You're really, you know, shooting it up there.
Right. So I just kind of try to see where they're at with it. And, you know, when they're fresh, you know, and they don't have any experience, then I'll start them with those like one chord or one note songs, things like that. Really get their fingers moving around, you know. And if they've had a little experience, I just kind of see where they're at, and you tell me where you want to go. You know, I'll do my. And a lot of times it's, you know, they come in, what kind of music you listen to? I don't know, but you know, and then I kind of, you know, take my own lead, and then they're all going to end up playing like War Pigs.
Because you're obviously not going to, you know, put upon, well, we're going to listen to Todd Hazelrigg today, or we're, you know, singer-songwriter type music, acoustic music. That's what you're gonna do. You know, even though they're like, oh no, I love Metallica. That's like my favorite band. Right.
If you love Metallica, then we're gonna play some Metallica, because that's your passion. That's when where you're gonna go. You know. Yeah. I remember my first one that I love. I think I was in 4th grade, and my mom was a teacher at the school I went to, and I broke my ankle, so I couldn't go out for recess. And so I went down to her lunch, and the 8th graders were down there eating lunch, you know, down in the basement room she taught in. And she was letting them play music, you know, during lunch, and Smells Like Teen Spirit came on, you know, and that riff was just like so cool and so clean. I just remember being like 9 and just being like, oh, this is what cool sounds like. And then from that moment on, I was like ripped jeans and flannels, you know, and like, I think I started like my angst at 10. And it was just grunge from there, you know, and that was really like grunge and alternative music is what really I was into, what I loved when I was a kid, you know, and that eventually kind of, you know, developed into like blues, and then like more maturity, like with jazz fusion and things like that. But it all started there with that, you know, that grunge element. And I love that I learned that first, because it's got so much energy. You know, you don't really have to know a lot about what you're doing besides doing a few power chords. I feel like I learned energy first. You know, I learned performing first, you know, and just like that snap. And all the technical prowess and all the really hard work on theory and things, you know, came after that. And I feel like a lot of people do that the other way, you know, that you start off, and I'm not saying one way is better than another. I just like the way I learned it. I liked, for me, I like that I didn't really know what I was doing for a long time. And I was just going up and like really just like letting it hang out, and then got to go back and start connecting the dots, you know, after I was already a performer, if you will.
I mean, that's like the rock and roll attitude, right? It's just like, do your thing and just go wild kind of deal. Right. And it's funny you bring it up that way, because I always felt like I wish I would have started on an acoustic and learned all the theory and then learned the more loose rock and roll later. I think it's just because those around me, maybe that's what they did. And I feel like I would have felt better. And still to this day, theory is out the window. I'm not very good with theory.
love theory. I'm a huge nerd when it comes to theory. I didn't finish my degree, but I studied for a little bit at EIU, doing music theory. And it's amazing to know theory, and you should know theory. But it also takes a lot of real hard work and dedication to sit there and do that, and to run modes and arpeggios, just over and over and over again. And so my fear with my students is always they're going to get bored, unless that's what they come to me saying that they want to learn. So sometimes I like to let them fall in love with their instrument first, and then once they're in love with their instrument, then they crave that theory.
That's true.
And they want to work hard and practice it.
That's a great way to go about it. I would say that's when I've wanted to learn more too, more chords, actually learn some new notes, or actually learn their names.
Yeah.
A little bit. Like I said, my theory is horrible when it comes to guitar, but I always felt like I guess I should be. Your perspective on learning kind of backwards is how I learned, and I guess it really wasn't that bad. Oh
yeah, you had fun, right?
Yeah, and I'm still, yeah. It's just, I guess I've always thought the opposite, but hearing the way you just put it, I feel a little better.
Sure. And that might work for somebody else. That's why I think it's just so important to kind of let the student set the path, and then you facilitate that path and help them along it,
And with it reminds me of a meme I saw not that long ago about, and I'm sure you've seen it too. It's like showing, I forget who it's showing, but it's showing someone being very fearful, and it's like guitar players in theory. Oh, I know what it was. It was from the original Spider-Man movie where they're fighting in the cage.
Yeah, I have seen that.
Yeah, and Spider-Man is up on the cage, and the wrestler is in the ring, and it's like the wrestler is the music theory and Spider-Man is the guitar player.
It's kind of like that. It really, it is. I really started learning a lot of theory, when we were playing with Sneaky Gene, and we got really into like jam bands. We got really into like Fish and the Grateful Dead and like these 20-minute guitar solos, and I started listening to all these bands, and I was just like, what are they doing? Like, that doesn't sound like a pentatonic scale, So I started really getting into it then. And then when I went to school, that really just opened up a door. My professor, Scott Hesse, my guitar teacher, he just showed me so much in so little time, just like packed it in. And I'm still processing like years later, everything, that he showed me. And I still don't have it all down. I'm still working on it. So there's just it's a whole science, really. There's just once you start connecting the dots and seeing how things work, you can really, like, I could sit down on a mandolin and figure out how to play. I'm not very like proficient on mandolin because I don't really play it very often. But give me a couple hours and I'll play that mandolin, because I know music theory. I know how it all connects, even though it's a different tuning, Same with a little bit of piano, which is really just the best way to learn because everything is just laid out in front of you. Everything's spread out. You can look at it. You can see the half steps, the whole steps, from the white keys to the black key. And then you realize that guitar is just stupid. It's the stupidest instrument. It's like everything is just like jumbled up. There's no like
those crazy chords,
right?
That you have to put your finger here, and then your pinky needs to be like
pinky's crossing your pointer. You're making a pretzel with your fingers.
Yeah,
you don't do that on piano. You just like spread your fingers a little more.
Yeah.
So is
that why? It's been a tradition for so long for young kids to their first instrument to be piano.
Yeah, I think so.
Because of it being visually laid out in front of you?
I do. I even recommend, in like early when I started, a lot of kids start around, like first grade or so. And
Yeah.
I usually recommend actually start with the ukulele, before going right to the guitar. Because guitar is hard. It's hard to push down on, to do the chords. And you really have to get past that first month of busting your fingers up and doing, it's so rewarding once you do. I would never turn anyone away from playing guitar. And if they say, I really want to learn the guitar, but yeah, come on in then, we'll play guitar. But I would always recommend, like, maybe first just kind of start off on that ukulele with a young kid. Let their fingers really get used to the strings. The chords are easier to play.
Yeah, there's only 4 strings.
And then segue into the guitar after that. And it's the same thing with the piano. If you really want to get just a little bit of a musical background and you're a young kid, you have a hard time gripping strings, the piano is easy to press. Everything's laid out in front of you. And you'll still get a good musical background, to transition then into the guitar.
I've heard people say you learn piano and guitar is a lot easier. I don't know if that's true or not, but
you learn pianos and guitars a lot easier than other instruments.
No, I've just heard if you know piano, guitar.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Is easier to
probably.
I don't know if that, like I said, I don't know if that's true or not.
I started with guitar, but I feel like if you get any kind of musical background, it's always easier to transition past that with anything. So I would go ahead and say that is probably true.
Yeah, and obviously actually knowing your music theory helps, I'll just have to have you teach me all the music theory that
Sure.
you know.
Yeah. Well, I started King Music next Thursday. I don't know when this is going to air, but October
this
7th.
is going to be up this week.
Okay, cool.
Tomorrow. Yeah. So
cool.
But yeah, that's right. You're going back to working with the studio because you were working on your own once again.
Well,
before
actually,
this, right?
So actually, like total curveball, I've been working on a vegetable farm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
that's something I wondered if you had actually been working another job on top of all your shows and guitar lessons.
Yeah, I've done like on and off things, for a few years ago I sold cars for like 6 months and I hated it, so I quit. And then
that doesn't sound like a very musician.
No, it wasn't.
Nothing against car salesmen by any means, but
yeah, it was
such a different animal,
right? It wasn't for me. And then I've done this farming gig for last 5 years on and off, but it's in Watseka, so I moved and it's Gray Farms. It's a small organic vegetable farm. Marty Gray, the owner, is a really great drummer himself. His wife, Crystal Gray, is a yoga teacher in town. And, they're both very cool people. I've always loved, working with them. And they've always taken me on, even if it's just for like, I got a gig on Friday in Kankakee. Can I come work Friday morning at the farm,
Yeah.
And so we've been doing that. And I was really excited to get back this year and work full time for them on the farm. It's just it's a great lifestyle, like just feeling healthy, eating right and living my best life. But it's a seasonal kind of thing, so I'm going to get back into like full-time teaching and gigging here now for the cold season. And I was doing before that, like when COVID hit, I really started doing a lot more Zoom lessons too, as we had to go to Zoom for the studio, obviously, for a while. And that just made me realize, like, oh, wait, I never even thought about that. I didn't even know what Zoom was until I think a lot of people did.
Yeah, I thought Zoom was just the recorder that we're using right now. And so people are talking about Zoom. I'm like, oh, that's it's a live internet chat thing?
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was just a recorder.
Yeah, but it was such an interesting time to be a musician, when COVID started. Because I was teaching and gigging at the time and, things are going totally normal. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, you got to teach online and all your gigs are gone, So the transition, I don't even want to say it was rocky. It really wasn't, because there's a way to teach online. It's kind of nice, especially you can share your screen and people can look at tabs and you can talk through it and all. I don't think that anything really replaces that, like one-on-one in the room together. I can count and, keep you in time.
Yeah.
But the Zoom lessons,
you can feel each other's energy.
They really weren't bad. And so I started taking on a bunch of Zoom students and I even started doing online theory classes. And so I would get 5 people together in one class, and I would just go for 40 minutes because I didn't want to pay for Zoom. So there'd be a 40-minute, class basically on music theory, focusing on, modes and, arpeggios and things that a lot of guitar players, it's like their next step, once they want to start learning theory, triads and things like that. Probably means nothing to a lot of the listeners, but that's
what?
Yeah.
What is that?
But that's what it was about. And, so I started doing that, and then when we moved here, and we live out in the country, and our internet's so bad that I just ended up stopping doing the online lessons because it was too much lag. So, but we were in the throes of the farming season. I was busy, and it kind of worked out better that way because I wanted to spend more of my evenings with my family at that point.
Yeah.
So, it's been a really nice few months. Just kind of having this escape from my normal, and going into farming and. It was easy to, during COVID, I hardly gigged, I played a few outdoor gigs here and there, and it was honestly so nice. Really, because I was burnt out from doing so much. And at the time, my son was born, during the pandemic, and my daughter was 2 at the time. And Alicia, my partner, she started taking up commissions, doing portrait work. And I think it was just because people were at home and didn't have things to spend their money on, is our hypothesis. But her portrait business just blew up. I think that people needed something nice, something to feel good. And so, she draws a lot of deceased family members, people's kids and dogs, so a lot of good gifts like that. Alicia posts art, online if you look her up. And so she pretty much just saved the family with her drawing dogs for a year,
Wow.
It was awesome. Yeah. And I just pretty much spent that time just with our daughter, hanging out. I was just watching the kids, and then my son, he's born, and then my oldest son out in Charleston. And, so I would spend time with the kids, and it was just a nice break. I'd teach a few online classes at night, and I feel like it really just helped me fall in love with performing again. From taking a break. And then the same when I came out here, I've been gigging more, but, I've been primarily working on the farm, so now I feel like there's just a new, a new thing on the horizon to where the gigs are starting to come back, the teaching's coming back, and I feel revigorated,
it's a new era.
Yeah.
It's a new era for you.
Exactly.
And that's so refreshing to hear that, the pandemic, while awful, was good in some respects.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Obviously, if I go back in time and make the whole thing not happen, obviously, it's the terrible, things that have come out of this, outweigh, anything good. But you always got to find the silver lining. It's I did have an opportunity, to spend more time at home, and realize that I need to be home more. I need to be with my family, And so, from, out of the dark clouds, there comes that little bit of light,
Yeah. So you're back to, not back, because you've never taught with King music before.
No, yeah,
so
this will be new.
This will be new.
Mm-hmm.
So if people want to get lessons with Todd Hazelrigg, they can do that.
Yeah. You can call King, or you can, if you know me personally, or you're know me on Facebook or whatever, you can message me or call me, or just call the store. It's probably the easiest thing to do for a stranger. Yeah,
right. And because they have your availability and all of that stuff. And then as far as what shows you got, do you have any shows coming up?
Yeah. So will this be released before the 9th, you think?
Yes.
Okay. So October 9th at the Bourbonnais Sportsman's Club, I'm helping coordinate the entertainment. There's a benefit. It's for Ethan Huntley. He's, I believe, 10, and he has an aggressive form of muscular dystrophy. And he's going to need a wheelchair and a van. It's a very close family friend. That's all, holidays, birthdays, everything. All our kids play together, and it's just their family's like family to me. It would mean so much to me if you guys could come out October 9th. It's at the Bourbonnais Sportsman's Club. We're doing the music there from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. We've got Matt Shipley, Neil Beeson, Ryan Leggett, Chris Yurt, Caleb Penley, Dakota Donaldson. The band The Simpsons are going to be playing. Just a really great lineup of music. And then they've got like, I believe, bounce houses and lots of things for
I was
kids.
gonna say,
food,
yeah, they gotta
and-
have all that stuff too.
Lots of good, great for the whole family. So, and then they'll be doing obviously, basket raffles and things like that. I believe it's a $10 entry, but it's just for a really great cause, for a really great family. So I hope everybody, can come out and check that out. October 9th at the Bourbonnais Sportsman's Club.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah. And then after that, I'll be at the Kankakee Farmers Market again, October 16th.
I think October is usually the last month for the farmers market.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Just snuck it in there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this Saturday the 16th.
Saturday the 16th.
You'll be back out there.
Mm-hmm. And then I'll be playing some electric stuff. So I play with the band The Strips.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I play electric guitar for that. And we'll be at On the Rocks on October 30th. And then we got The Strips have Black Wednesday at the library. So a few more little acoustic, little electric stuff coming up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have the holiday shows, I guess.
Yeah,
October
for sure.
30th will almost be like a Halloween show.
Yeah.
I imagine.
It's funny. The last time we did the Halloween show at On the Rocks, we always play with the band Biso and Friends. You know, and all the Strips, we dressed up like Biso and Friends for the show.
Did they dress up like the Strips?
Well, they had a different gift. Unfortunately, we weren't sharing the bill that day. But we were like sending them pictures and stuff.
That's great.
Yeah, so I don't know what we'll dress up as this year. We'll see.
Have to think. Yeah, it's already the beginning of October, so I have to figure that one out soon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So awesome.
Yeah.
And if it's cool, I would love for us, or love to have you play a song for us right
Absolutely,
now. So, I know you know this because, and whoever, if you've listened to this episode or not, but a couple of months back we had Lupe Carroll on the podcast who wrote our theme song, and I had said on that episode that if Lupe would have turned me down, I would have turned to you.
Right.
And I'm like, I feel bad saying that now. I hope
it's okay.
I know it's like.
Well, Lupe did an amazing. I don't think I could have done better with that.
I don't know.
Song.
Man,
it was amazing.
Honestly, what I would have done, I probably, because what I was thinking in my mind, I was thinking of the Kankakee song that you wrote. How old is that song? And sometime in the last 5 years.
2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
So last 5 years, because that kind of went viral in our little local network.
That was shortly after I moved down to Charleston, and I remember I came home like the night before from like a local bar, and I was like living by myself, woke up the next day just like really feeling like just homesick for what we have in Kankakee. There's just such a camaraderie between all the people and the musicians. It really is just a hidden gem. And so I wrote the song in like 30 minutes. I was in my pajamas, like didn't even change. I didn't think anything of it. I was just like posted up on Facebook, like, here's a song for my Kankakee friends, and then it went viral, and I just like watched it all day get shared. I think it had something like 25,000 views and like thousands of shares. And one of the coolest things, because it has the line, I wish I was home in Kankakee. And I was going to click on like who shared it, and I'm seeing all these people I don't know like sharing it and their posts. And this one woman, like who obviously they had the same name, was obviously her husband, who was probably away for something. And I saw her share it to him and say, I wish that you were home in Kankakee.
Aww.
And it's just like,
it's so sweet.
It was so touching. So that was like a really, really big deal for me.
Yeah. I know I was one of the people that shared that, because that's when I had discovered you, was that song. One of my friends, I think, had shared it. So then I'd seen it. And at that time, I was working on the midday show on River Country 101.7 and 103.7. So I was all about, country-esque songs. And that one came across. I'm like, that's awesome. I just thought it was,
thanks,
it was perfect. So, but what I was going to say is I probably would have, if Lupe turned me down, I probably would have approached you and been like, hey, Can we use your can I use your
awesome.
Kankakee song for, and it still could happen, some point down the line.
You're
We could
always
work
welcome
out
to it.
some,
Mhm.
I know I'll have to work out a deal with your manager, your people,
Sure.
probably be thousands upon thousands of dollars, but
Maybe I might cut you a deal for $1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, all right, making deals. I like this. So anyway, yeah, whatever song you want to play
Sure.
for us is to.
I'll probably play that one.
I mean,
hyped it up so much.
we can do that, or we can do another song.
Sure.
I mean, it's totally up to you.
I'll do Kankakee.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Just a boy of 18 when I set on down the road. Never had a good friend or a place to call my own. But I bathed out in that river, it was rolling like the sea. Here I made my home in Kankakee. Kankakee, darling, you've been wonderful to me. And now I'm sitting in a new bar, and you can surely see. I wish that I was home in Kankakee. Now out with all my best friends, we're standing 10 feet tall. We grew up together, some of us never grew up at all. Funny how the time can turn from friends to family. Wish that I was home in Kankakee. Kankakee, darling, you've been wonderful to me. And now I'm sitting in a new bar, and you can surely see. Wish that I was home in Kankakee. So go on and raise your glasses and drink unto the land. If you ain't got a bottle, go on and click your cans. I set out to be famous, son, in the land of Jameson, and only all my best friends were my fans. Kankakee, darling, you've been wonderful to me. And now I'm sitting in a new bar, and you can surely see. I wish that I was home in Kankakee. And now I'm sitting in a new bar, and you can surely see. I wish that I was home in Kankakee.
Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. I love that song, and I would before we sat down, before you came over,
Mhm.
and I was doing some prep. I was trying to find. I was like, maybe the song is on Spotify, but it's not.
No.
Is it available anywhere?
No, it's not. Only on the infamous YouTube video,
Oh, okay.
and probably some other like live.
Dude.
There's some live videos and stuff of it too.
You
but
gotta,
yeah,
we
I've
gotta
not
get that
recorded this one.
recorded. Like if I was the program director or a head honcho
Mhm.
at one of the local radio stations, I would make sure that you got that properly recorded, and I would literally put it into rotation on my radio station
I'll get it
without
I'll
a
get it
doubt.
recorded this summer for you.
I mean, I'm not a head honcho at a local radio station. I'm just saying, like, that's what I would do because I would want that, especially like, I mean, the station I do afternoons on the Valley 92.7.
Mhm.
I mean, we play the city of New Orleans
Mhm.
all the time,
Yeah.
and we'll play the Willie Nelson version, we'll play the Arlo Guthrie version, and I always, every time I play it, I'm like, we should be playing Todd Hazelrigg's Kankakee song.
Yeah.
Like a song that's all about Kankakee and doesn't just mention it,
Mhm.
the city, because obviously that's why we play the song,
Yeah.
because it mentions Kankakee.
I actually got to play City of New Orleans on the BBC a few years ago.
Really?
Yeah,
On BBC?
Bill Yanka hooked it up.
Oh, the
train station show. Yeah,
Okay, I
Mhm.
know what you're talking about.
it was
now.
Great American Railroad Journeys.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they were doing basically it's this the host is a British guy, and he comes to America and takes these railroad tours, and talks about the little towns and stuff he stops on. They came to Kankakee, and they were talking about the City of New Orleans song, because it mentions it, and so we put a band together, and we played that song, and played a few more, and we played Kankakee, and it didn't make the cut for the show, but
oh man,
that's okay.
Yeah, probably because they're looking for a song back.
Well, it made more sense with the flow of the show just to have us. The host walked in and we were playing the song, and he was up on stage singing to my mic with me, and it was a lot of fun. And it went out to like 2.5 million viewers.
Wow!
But they didn't show it in the States. So I'm way more popular.
You're huge in the UK.
I'm huge in the UK.
Just huge. All right, we're arranging a tour. I'll be your TM. I'll be your tour manager.
Somebody needs
for
to
the
do
UK tour. I can do that. I've got a little bit of experience being a TM. Not a lot, but a little bit. So I could do that for you.
Awesome.
But yeah, I completely forgot about that. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
They probably, honestly, they probably chose City of New Orleans just because of the national or maybe global recognition behind the song. I mean, you got people like Willie Nelson playing their version of that song, so. But yeah, Todd, anything else on music or teaching?
Sure. Well, just since we're a Kankakee podcast, I just want to say, like I said earlier, like this town is just an incredible, like hidden gem of music in the Midwest, and just from, just the history, of all the bands from like Spankakimi, back in the day. And then I mentioned earlier, like JD and the Fuzz, and just like all the other like great musicians and bands that have come out of here. And it was just so awesome that I got to step into this scene, and the scene like embraced me like it did. And I feel really lucky, to be able to come through here. Cause a lot of musicians, like they'll put on their Facebook, wherever, like I'm Chicago, like, cause that's the place that people recognize nearby, but I've always stuck with Kankakee. Always put I will always say, like, I am a Kankakee based musician,
I have to be honest, I'm guilty of the times that I toured in my life.
That makes more sense.
I would say we were from Chicago because they don't know.
Right. And if I was going on like a giant tour like that, maybe I would do the same, but for me though, it's like, I've always associated, I felt like my music has gone hand in hand with Kankakee, it was great. I got, the opportunity, just from playing music festivals and things to kind of be like the Kankakee guy, for the touring Midwest bands, where it's like I would book a lot of bands out here when they're on tour, and then in return they would book me in their place, but it would always like, I'd be getting, texts and messages, like, hey, I'm routing a band, down through like from Chicago down through Southern Illinois, like we make a Kankakee stop, and so for years I got to be the Kankakee guy, in that scene. And, I've never been able, to feel anywhere else, like as much as I am, even when I wasn't living here, like I still felt like the Kankakee guy,
Which is how you ended up writing the song,
right?
The Kankakee song.
And I've heard it from so many people too. It's like people move away, they come back, and it's like something about this town that sucks you in, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, I know there's people that listen to this podcast that live elsewhere, but they grew up here in Kankakee, so it's kind of a way for them to stay connected, I guess, or just reminisce from their days here, their time here. But yeah, I agree. There's just something about Kankakee. So, well, Todd, thank you so much for being on Kankakee Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Been a real pleasure, and I hope we can do this again sometime.
Absolutely. So, hopefully I'll have that song recorded, and we could use it for other things in the future too. Yeah,
exactly. I'm telling you, man, you got to do it.
I will. I think that we're planning on doing a lot of recording now here for the cold season. I think that's been in the works. I've just had a hard time with the kids being little and everything, and we try to do a little bit more like home recording stuff to save money and, in studios and with what you're recording, it's so easy to do that at home. It's not like you need the big thing is having some people might not know this, but drums are a very hard thing to record. Right.
And a lot of times I know people that will do everything. They'll record everything at home except for the drums.
Yeah.
They'll go to an actual studio that has a proper, equipped room. And I'm not even talking about microphones. It's just the way the room is designed for the acoustics and the sound, because you can't mimic that in every space.
Right,
so like
right.
people will rent a studio just to do the drums.
Yeah, exactly.
And they'll do everything else at home.
We moved our house now that we're living in. We just moved back, and our house is a little bit bigger. We have more space to where I could leave a microphone out and a little person won't try to eat it, and smack my guitar and shock themselves on cables. So the now that the farm season's dying down, recording is in the works. It's in the plans.
Awesome.
So
Please release some type of original album or EP, and you got my full support on pushing that.
Thank you.
I'd be happy to help support you on that.
Awesome.
So, all right, Todd. Well, we'll talk to you again next time.
Hey, thanks, man.
All right, that's it for this episode of Kankakee Podcast. I'm Jake LaMore. I truly hope you enjoyed listening today. And if you want to go ahead and catch up on previous episodes, please do so at kankakeepodcast.com or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. If you can, please drop us a positive rating and review on Apple Podcasts, and follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Sorry. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is at Kankakee Podcast. You can also sign up for our mailing list at kankakeepodcast.com. And we have a Facebook group as well that you can join if you want to talk a little bit more about your favorite episode or who you think should be on the podcast coming up in the future, or a certain topic or place that you think we should cover. Our Facebook group is the perfect place to do that. And as I mentioned, our theme song by Lupe Carroll.
People take